Now, to follow up on that question and to your emotions and, what Fabi said about bringing it in the public's eye, did you try to reach out to Vladimir privately after you heard of his accusations?
Um, so in the spirit of openness, I will say that after my Levitov appearance, Kramnik recorded a reaction, a 2 hour reaction where he just basically disagreed with everything I said and was, very, I wouldn't charge him with being rude or anything, but it was, he felt very strongly that had misrepresented the situation of online cheating. And he invited me to his show, but I was not interested. I mean, this is not my role in life. I'm a commentator. This is not my war to wage, and I was happy to get behind his efforts, provided that they were undertaken in good faith, even if we disagreed. So, I mean, I didn't go on a show, but I didn't realize that was sort of an obligation or expectation. I
This
sort of
is
made it clear that
Kramnik's, just to make sure,
this is
this is
Kramnik's
Kramnik's show.
channel.
Kramnik's show.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is Kramnik's channel, and I kind of made it clear to Levitov that okay, like I'll let you fight your battle, and you let me fight mine. My battle is with bullet chess addiction. His battle is with chess cheating. We all have a role to play in life. Okay. Then, once the videos started coming out and escalating really, really quickly, I did not offer a direct dialogue, but I thought he would understand that my responses on the Twitch stream were a good faith effort to answer his questions. Like I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. I made it very clear, like what he was lying about, and he has lied about a staggering number of things, the vast majority of the things he said. But I didn't try to artificially escalate it. I mean, my rhetoric was very harsh, of course, as I think anyone's tone would be if you're accused of perhaps the most serious crime that you can commit as a grandmaster. A potential reputation destroying crime. So I was very firm, but I also tried to refute the particular charges that he was making. And I thought that would be case closed. But, then everything I would say not only would be called a lie for no reason, like he would just lies, lies, lies. It's almost like he said yesterday on the Levitov channel that you started it. He said that phrase, you started it. And I was like, this man needs psychiatric assistance stat. I mean, or maybe I'm just living in a different reality.
What does he mean when he says you started it?
What he means is, again, to be clear, he's not claiming that I released the first video on Kramnik being a farmer. Maybe he should become a farmer somewhere in Peru, together with Jaspam. But he means I started the vitriol. In response to his initial set of videos, I recorded a long reaction. He then thought that I uploaded a 15-minute video to YouTube, which was actually uploaded by someone named Stoned Gamer, a YouTuber with 6 subscribers. It was mistitled, and it was a very small segment from my actual stream where I went into a lot more depth. So in that response, I said that he had been making slanderous lies, but because it was just an out-of-context clip that was 15 minutes long, I didn't go into depth about exactly why a lot of the things he was saying were lies, and I did that on the actual VOD of the Twitch stream. So he claims that I was the first to start accusing the other of mendacity and acting in bad faith. And I believe that is because he's acting in bad faith.
he accused, or let's not say accused, he
asked questions about
that you were unfair. You responded by saying it's not true, and then that was you starting it. Is
yes.
That my understanding? Okay.
That your understanding is correct.
Okay. Yeah, that's so. I want to say that this Vladimir, I think it was about a year ago. It's pretty recent, maybe a year and a few months ago, that he started his online campaign against cheating, which on its face, of course, is very fair. I mean, cheating is a terrible thing, and the less cheating we have, so fighting cheating, what could be better? And definitely with some caveats, I was close to on board with what he was saying at the start about a year ago. But then there was a lot of mixed messaging. It started with, accuracy, like the cap score on chess.com, which I think I've said multiple times is not really a metric to go by. I mean, if someone is doing 100% throughout the tournament, yeah, that's cheating. If a 900 is performing 95% every game, yeah, that's almost certainly cheating. But uh, you shouldn't be like judging between grandmasters performing 89% or 92% over 11 games because a lot of these accuracies are based on, are you finding the most accurate way to win? Like, is it +5 or +7? Things like that, right? It's not really a metric to determine the quality of a game. And then he went into the statistics of um, like what's the probability of a player scoring 8.5 out of 11, right? Based on their chess.com rating or FIDE rating. These were very often mixed up. And I think that you should have consistent number. Like you should either stick to FIDE ratings or chess.com ratings across the board. You shouldn't just like jump between the two to determine your statistics. And then a lot of it was not even based on anything. It was just, I challenge you to a match, which which
Trial
is
by
not a
combat.
it's not yeah, a trial by combat. It's not a scientific method, you know. If you play Kramnik, you prove either you are or aren't. And then a lot of this stuff was dropped. Like he plays 2 matches, and then there is no conclusion to this all. And then I'm left wondering, like, what was the point of this whole crusade? I mean, interesting though it may be to watch. What was the conclusion? I never found out what his opinion is after the result of two
I
matches.
I think I would assume you're talking about the Jaspin matches. I think his
Yeah, and I can
conclusion.
offer my take because he said in Russian, and then he went on a podcast with Nepo, and he actually did share some thoughts. But Christian, you go ahead.
I was just listening. I was trying to do some research for this episode, and I was listening to his most recent one, which dropped just today. And he did just mention, I think for the first time, perhaps in the English-speaking world, about his conclusion, his personal conclusion about those ones. And his main point was that he finally got to show the world that there's no big difference between online and over-the-board chess performance. So when he played Jaspin, more or less both the online and the over-the-board sections were competitive. And that's compared to his previous score against Jaspin, which was pretty abysmal for him. I guess that was what I understood, what I drew from that. What did you draw from his conclusion?
Bobby, do you want to?
Oh no, you go ahead.
So yeah, on his Nepo, it took me a while to get the pun in this. Nepo did a podcast with a couple of Russian speaking GMs, and he called it the Nep podcast, which in Russian is a pun because it means not podcast, не podcast, but also Nepo cast.
Mm-hmm.
Very funny. Just wanted to put that out there. So Kramnik, yeah, he kind of was dancing around, like beating around the bush. He said, yeah, you know, the results of the match were inconclusive. And, you know, on the one hand, I mean, the fact that he didn't beat me by a large margin, you know, clearly shows that I was legitimate in acting the way that I did and blah, blah, blah. But on the other, like and, you know, this is the thing. I mean, he's just pathologically incapable of admitting, A, that he's ever wrong, B, that he is, you know, yeah, like essentially he acts perfectly and he will change the narrative and literally deny reality for as long as it takes, no matter how much like mental acrobatics you have to do in order to like keep that consistent. So it's funny because he reversed the timeline. With me, he started by offering the duel. With Jospin, I think he started with a lot of by casting suspicions and then ended with, okay, now you have a choice. Either we play or etc. Or I keep going. With me, he was like, either we play at the start for 50K, and that actually was one of the two most toxic things that was hardest for me to dispel because I thought about it actually. I like would be down to play under different circumstances. Like I'd be down to play a supervised online match, but there were reasons that I clearly saw that he was not acting in good faith, and something was very, very wrong here. And the fact that people didn't see that at first, the fact that people were like, okay, but like this sounds like you're making excuses for not playing. Like, no, he's literally saying, unless I beat him by the equivalent of our online score, which is like heavily in my favor, like even if I win the match, he will like his behavior will not change. And the other big like not toxic idea is, okay, I agree that at the GM level, OTB and online chess might not be like that different. I mean, they are very different, but the difference should not like radically change your results. Like it's like if you're 2100 blitz OTB and you've got like 8 out of 11 in Title Tuesday, like Okay, like I think you should be investigated, yes. But just compare the number of games that you play OTB and online. One tournament cannot be the litmus test for cheating. Like if I do badly in the World Blitz Championship and I'm playing it for the first time, in what world can that be then used to explain? I don't know how many online games I've played, like 50,000? Like you're taking a 10 game sample to explain cheating over the course of 20,000 games? I mean, that I think is where the madness is. It's like one OTB tournament can never be used as like a clear proof of anything. And I feel like I'm in a completely indefensible position when I have to like perform well on one particular day for like a particular 30 minutes. And if I do perform well, the goalposts shift again, just like they did when I played the American Couplets. It's only 5 games. Bobby, I mean, you beat me in that tournament. You're
But you,
scary to play in
you
Blitz OTB. It's a lot different.
no, it's definitely different. Also, I think like a big distinction is increment or no increment. I think for me, this is like the most clear-cut distinction. Okay, there's also a difference between 1 second and 2 second, but I think that's
Hmm.
a far lesser difference than having no increment. I mean, if we play bullet just 1-0 with no increment, I basically don't think I have a chance in hell of even making it a match.
Hmm.
And I think that's a very objective statement, and
We played in
probably also
Toronto,
not.
right? Hmm.
Yeah, over the board, 1 minute without increment, you are also favorite. You beat me over the board. Um, I think that over the board 1 minute is kind of weird because you have
Hmm.
that like messy factor. Uh, but like
PC
three
start flying
minute
at some
online,
point.
I also feel like I would be a significant underdog against you if we played like a long non-increment 3 minute match. While if you had the increment, then I'm much more confident about my chances. But speaking of the American Cup, I think you probably scored 5 out of 7. If I am I
Five and a
remembering
half, I
correct?
think. Yeah, I
Five
drew
and a half out of 7,
Kevlashvili and I lost to you.
which is I mean a good result. I mean again, not to read too much into like singular events, as you said, it's 7 games is not a statistically relevant sample size, but I never understood like why you became the target because I always felt like a lot of suspicion about people without even saying any names. I never said any names, maybe privately, uh, but of course there's a lot of suspicion. Probably some of it's wrong, some of it I would assume is correct because obviously there is some cheating. But I never felt this about you because like you have like a very consistent pattern, which is that you are a very strong player. And then in Blitz, you do perform better than in Classical, which is logical. I mean, some players are more comfortable in Blitz than Classical. And without increment, you get stronger, but like very noticeably in Bullet and consistently in 3 minute. Uh, and then in like online 3-2 or 3-1, whatever we play in Title Tuesday, and over the board 3-2, then there's also like a lot of consistency. So it just felt like a very consistent pattern overall, and I never felt like the slightest suspicion, uh, even though suspicion, of course, doesn't necessarily mean anything. But then I was surprised when it like kind of came out because I thought, okay, of all the possible cheating targets,
Me?
yeah, it did feel a bit random to me, but then like it got increasingly more clear that okay, he like has this target for whatever reason, and it's kind of singular at this point. It's not like he's discussing, you know, last Title
A
Tuesday there were
hive.
like
A
yeah,
hive of
like
cheaters.
there's a bunch of weird things. No, it's like this and then okay, we'll probably get into this and you can talk about it in more detail. But then we got into like the kind of fourth stage of like what's suspicious. Like we had the statistics, the cap score, the results, the trial by combat, and then we had the eye movement slash
Hmm.
mo hidden monitors in the
Let's call
room.
it the evidence. Like then
That's
the evidence was laid out. Right. Continue.
yeah, the kind of let's call it like hard evidence because if
Hmm.
someone was cheating with something that you could see, that would be hard evidence, right? Like a phone in the bathroom. He was a that's like the hard evidence, right?
I think he called
Uh,
it the Terminator. Yeah.
but then okay, yeah, yeah. I guess I'm just curious about like your view on all the multiple monitors and camera stuff.
Dude, this is some of the craziest shit I've ever like came across. This like because of course, like when there's the bishop c8 thing, which I want to discuss separately. Christian, like you, I also don't want to like, take the wheel here too much.
No, please do.
Should I
Please
just like
do.
talk about this one by one? Okay, so
Yes, and look,
actually,
I
yes,
don't want
yeah,
I don't want it to sound like some sort of questioning situation or
no,
investigation that we're running ourselves. I just want to make sure that by the end of it, we're going to cover basically, or at least as many accusations, let's say, or questions that Kramnik had, so that we kind of delve into everything.
yeah, no, totally. I don't think of it that way, and you guys are it's not about like what a person genuinely thinks, but you're good faith actors, and obviously like I want to talk about this because I want to expose how fucked up it is on a million levels. And the people on my stream who are like, well, if you had just ignored it, then this would not have become such a big thing. I really, that presses my buttons, because it doesn't press my space bar though, because it just like it's such a disingenuous way of looking at it. I'm not trying to seek attention with this, but the people who are buying into this narrative, they exist at many levels, including at the very top level, and they include a large number of chess fans. Like this is doing very serious damage and actual damage. It's not just like bots or Russian spies who are believing Kramnik. He has a lot of authority. He's a fucking world champion. Okay. And like people say that, but they don't understand what that means and how much authority that gives you. There's like 14 of those guys, in like ever. Okay. So in terms of the like evidence, let's start with the like yesterday I asked Kramnik, can you lay out specifically what are the points that you want me to disprove? And he didn't answer because that is the nature of the shifting goalpost. But if I could pin down like what is the body of evidence, first of all, the eye movements, okay? So the eye movements exist in two different forms. And now I think that it's taken on three different like specific varieties. The first is based on a game that I played with Kramnik entitled Tuesday that I put out on my YouTube channel, which is one of the many things that makes this kind of a theater of the absurd. The fact that like, okay, so he thinks I cheated on my Twitch stream and then I immortalized that by then asking my editor to put it on my YouTube channel. It's not an argument in my defense. It's just like funny that he never like paused to think about how shameless I would have to be. So Fabi, Christian, you know what I'm talking about, like that game with Kramnik, right? Queen H4 check.
I think I've seen it. Yes. The Queen H4 was the sexy move. Yeah.
It was the sexy move, and after that, in the same video, he looks at a game with Wesley. But one of the biggest sources of his confusion is that I have two different streaming spaces. Okay, so where I'm sitting right now is my main streaming space.
About
yeah.
To ask you about that, because I think this is a new point that he just brought in today's episode, where he talks about you having two very distinct spaces. This one was the one that he used for Levitov chess, and the ones that he's presented in previous episodes.
Yeah, it's my home office.
It's a different one. Yes.
But it's like my main one, right? So this is my home office. I have a tower, like I don't know, what do you call this computer that's not a laptop?
Desktop.
Oh. Yeah, so there's like a thing underneath, like the computer itself, and then two monitors and a camera between the monitors and a mic, and a fourth and fifth and sixth monitor that I'll get to. I was trying to joke on the Levitov show. I mean, the guy is so humorless. I was like, let me show all six of my monitors or something like that. And Levitov laughed, and like Kramnik just like stony faced. Well, I don't know what his face was because he was too much of a chicken to turn his camera on. Fabi, I think you had something to say.
No. Actually, I was gonna like mention that like during this whole Levitov interview, I think that you went through like your entire setup, right? You showed everything in your room and so on and so forth. And this, I assume, was not convincing for Kramnik.
No, partially because he's asking me to prove the absence of something, which is impossible by definition. To prove the absence of something is impossible by definition. So that's the third monitor. But he thinks that I have these two spaces for a nefarious reason. I simply have another streaming space. That's the one with like the white wall, right? Where I sometimes like plug in the backlight that's plugged in right now, right here. I just carry it down and I stream from my laptop. I also use that laptop when I travel, right? When I go back home, for example. And the laptop is plugged into a monitor. And I've shown that setup and that entire room I've shown as well. And the only reason that I stream from that room sometimes is if my like cleaning lady is here. Or like, you know, if I just want a slight different change of, sometimes I like playing from my laptop because it's a high refresh rate and it's a smaller room so I can focus better. Like everything is ascribed to some nefarious reason. And I'm like, am I a genius or am I an idiot? Like which one is it? Like, am I James Bond or am I like,
I just want to understand, maybe Kramnik got into this, or maybe he didn't. I assume he didn't. But if let's just assume that a player is a cheater, why would it make any difference how many playing spaces they have? Like if they have their cheating setup, why do they need a different cheating setup? Or why do they need one fair setup, one cheating setup? Like what's the logic there if he got into that at all?
Well, he's contradicting himself because first of all, he doesn't realize that my monitor that's I use with my laptop is much smaller. Like my two monitors on my main office is like 34 inches and 31.5 inches, like really, really big. And it's really comfortable to play and to work on them. And I don't just use it to cheat, right? I use it, just kidding. I don't just use it to play Title Tuesday. See, I shouldn't joke about that, but I can't help it because it's just too fucking funny.
This will be taken out of context.
The whole situation is too ripe for humor and fucking with people, so I do it, and I'm going to continue to do it. But yeah, all of the jokes are in stock, are still at fish. Horrible. Okay, so the monitors that I have here, I don't carry it up and down to my other setup. I have a different monitor there that's much smaller. And so when he was charging me with looking up when I played Wesley, he uses to illustrate why that's an unnatural motion, a still image from the stream where I talk about my laptop setup with the smaller monitor. So it's like a complete, as you say in Russian, a porridge in your brain. Like and I told him that on the Levitov channel, and he's just like, I didn't do that. I'm like, bitch, I have this. Here is the image from your YouTube video. And he was doing this many times. I was like, you called me a cheater. I never did that. I read out a tweet that he posted. He's like, when did I post that? I said, October 20th, like 12:59. And, you know, like, and his response to that is always, oh, that's not important. Let's move on, which is just insanity. Like you have a prosecutor who is lying time and time and time again. And every time I demonstrate it explicitly, he is then allowed to just strike that from the record and quote unquote move on